I thought I found the one. She looked me in the eyes and said, "I love you." We were already planning the wedding. Then I saw a picture on Facebook. A man next to her, holding her hand, calling her his wife. I stared at it for hours, and in that moment everything broke. The waves crashed against the white sand as Selena rested her head on my shoulder. We were sitting on the deck of our beach resort in Panglao, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. I had just transferred 8,000 pesos to her account an hour earlier. For the house deposit, she had said, showing me pictures of a small rental closer to her parents in Cebu. We can start our life together there. I believed every word. I was 58 years old, and for the first time in decades, I felt like I was home. "Dean," she whispered, her fingers tracing circles on my chest, "I want to grow old with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning until we're both gray and wrinkled." I kissed the top of her head. Her hair smelled like coconut and jasmine. "That's all I want too," I told her. "Just you and me." She tilted her face up to look at me, those dark eyes reflecting the dying light. "Promise me you'll never leave me," she said. "Promise me you'll always take care of me." I promised. "God help me," I promised. "I've never felt this way before," she continued, her voice soft and vulnerable. "Back home in Canada, my ex-wife used to say I was emotionally unavailable. Maybe she was right. But with you." I paused, searching for the right words. "With you, everything feels possible." Selena smiled and pressed her lips to mine. The kiss tasted like the mango we had shared earlier, and something sweeter I couldn't name. "I love you, Dean," she said against my mouth. "I love you so much it scares me." Those words hit me like a physical force. I had been waiting my entire life to hear someone say them and mean them. "I love you too," I whispered back, "more than I thought I could love anyone." The resort staff began lighting the tiki torches along the beach. Other couples walked hand in hand along the shoreline. Everything felt perfect. Everything felt real. "When we get back to Cebu," Selena said, "I want to introduce you to my whole family. My grandmother has been asking about you." I laughed. "What did you tell her?" "I told her you're the man I'm going to marry." The way she said it, so matter-of-fact and certain, made my chest tighten with emotion. "Are you sure about that?" I asked, only half joking. She looked at me with such intensity that I forgot to breathe. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. That night, as we lay in bed with the ocean breeze flowing through the open windows, I stared at the ceiling and thought about how far I had come. 6 months ago, I was a lonely retiree in Victoria, fixing old printers and watching Netflix alone. Now I was planning a future with a beautiful woman who loved me. I was planning to build something real, something lasting. I should have known it was too good to be true. Moving to the Philippines wasn't a romantic escape, it was survival. After my divorce was finalized and I took early retirement, Victoria felt like a graveyard. Every street corner reminded me of 30 years of marriage that ended with my ex-wife telling me I was emotionally unavailable and impossible to love. Maybe she was right. I had spent most of our marriage fixing other people's problems at work and coming home too tired to fix my own. The settlement left me comfortable but not rich. The Canadian winters left me cold in ways that had nothing to do with temperature. "You should travel," my buddy Rick had said over beers at the pub. "Get out of this frozen wasteland. Go somewhere warm. Go somewhere that doesn't remind you of her." The Philippines wasn't my first choice. It wasn't even my second. But the cost of living was right, and the weather was always warm. I rented a small apartment in La Hug, bought a motorbike, and tried to figure out what to do with the rest of my life. For 2 months, I was just another invisible expat wandering around Cebu City. I ate at the same restaurants, shopped at the same malls, spoke to nobody except vendors and taxi drivers. I was existing, not living. Then I met Selena. It was a Tuesday afternoon at Mercury Drugstore in IT Park. I was limping from an old knee injury that had been acting up, trying to find some pain relievers, when this young woman approached me. "Sir, are you okay?" she asked in accented English. "You look like you're hurting." I looked up to see the most beautiful woman I had ever seen in person. Dark hair cascading past her shoulders, warm brown eyes, a smile that seemed genuinely concerned. She was wearing the store uniform, a name tag that read, "Selena, just an old injury." I said, suddenly self-conscious about my gray hair and the 29-year age difference between us. Nothing serious. My mother has arthritis, she said. Sometimes she limps like that. Are you taking anything for the pain? We talked for 10 minutes about medications and joint pain. She recommended a local brand that was cheaper than what I had been buying. When I thanked her, she smiled and said, "Take care of yourself, sir. You seem like a good man." That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Not in a romantic way, not at first. It was just that someone had noticed me. Someone had cared enough to ask if I was okay. 3 days later, I went back to the same drugstore. "Oh, it's you again," Selena said when she saw me. "How is your knee?" I had bought flowers on the way. "Just a small bouquet from a street vendor." "My knee is better," I said, holding them out awkwardly. "These are for you, to thank you for your kindness." She looked surprised, then delighted. "Sir, you didn't have to do this." "My name is Dean," I said. And yes, I did. We talked for another 15 minutes. She told me she was 29, studying part-time to become a pharmacy technician while supporting her parents in Bohol. I told her I was retired, trying to start a new life in the Philippines. "Would you like to have coffee sometime?" I asked, my heart pounding like a teenager's. "I would like that very much," she said. Our first coffee became lunch. Lunch became dinner. Dinner became daily video calls when we weren't together. Within 2 weeks, Selena was bringing me breakfast every morning before her shift at the drugstore. "I made this for you," she would say, holding up a container of rice and fish or chicken adobo. My grandmother's recipe. I had never had a woman cook for me just because she wanted to. My ex-wife had cooked out of obligation, sighing every time she opened the refrigerator. Selena cooked like it was an act of love. "Try this," she would say, feeding me bites with her fork. "Tell me if it's too salty." It was never too salty. It was perfect because she made it. We spent hours walking through local markets, her teaching me the names of fruits I had never seen before. "This is rambutan," she would say, peeling the spiky skin to reveal the white flesh inside. "Try it." I would try anything she offered. I would have followed her anywhere. "Your Tagalog is terrible." She laughed one afternoon after I mispronounced the word for delicious so badly that the vendor couldn't understand me. "Let me teach you properly. Repeat after me." "Masarap." "Masarap," I said carefully. "Better," she said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss my cheek. "But still terrible." I introduced her to the other expats at our usual hangout spot, a bar called Murphy's that served overpriced beer and showed NBA games. The guys were polite but skeptical. "She's young," my drinking buddy Frank had said when Selena went to the bathroom. "Really young. You sure you know what you're doing?" "I'm sure," I said, though his words stung more than I wanted to admit. "Age is just a number." "If you say so," Frank replied, but his expression said otherwise. I didn't care what they thought. When Selena came back and slid her hand into mine, when she laughed at my jokes and listened to my stories about Canada, when she looked at me like I was the most interesting man in the world, nothing else mattered. 2 months in, she introduced me to her family. Her younger sister Mia was studying nursing. Her Aunt Luz ran a small sari-sari store. They welcomed me with genuine warmth, asking about my life in Canada, serving me too much food, treating me like family. "They like you?" Selena said later as we walked along the waterfront. "My aunt said you have kind eyes." "What do you think?" I asked. "I think you have the kindest eyes I've ever seen," she said, stopping to face me. "I think I'm falling in love with you." The words hit me like a physical blow. "I think I'm already there," I told her. That night, she stayed over for the first time. We made love slowly, tenderly, like we had all the time in the world. Afterward, as she traced patterns on my chest, she said quietly, "I've never felt this safe with anyone before. You are safe." I promised her. "I'll always keep you safe." When her family started having financial problems, sending money felt natural. Her father needed medication. Her sister's tuition was due. The house needed repairs. "I don't want to ask you for this," Selena would say, tears in her eyes. "But I don't know who else to turn to." "You don't have to ask," I would tell her, transferring funds without hesitation. "We're in this together now." Every month, I sent between 30 and 50,000 pesos, It felt good to be needed. It felt good to be the solution instead of the problem. It felt good to watch the relief flood her face when I said yes. "You're too good to me," she would whisper after each transfer. "I don't deserve you." "You deserve everything," I would tell her. And I meant it. The first crack in paradise was barely noticeable. We were cooking dinner together in my small kitchen when Selena's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "I need to take this," she said, stepping onto the balcony. Through the glass door, I could see her pacing, her voice too low for me to hear the words but her body language tense, animated. The call lasted nearly 20 minutes. When she came back inside, I was plating the pancit we had made together. "Everything okay?" I asked casually. "Yes, just my cousin," she said, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. "Family drama, you know how it is." I nodded and handed her a plate. But something felt off. Her cousin lived in Manila, and I had heard her talk to family before. This felt different. Her voice had been softer, more intimate. 2 days later, she mentioned the call again, but this time she said it was a friend from Manila who had been having relationship problems. "I thought you said it was your cousin," I said, trying to keep my tone light. She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Did I? I meant my friend. Sometimes I get confused when I'm speaking English." It was a reasonable explanation. English wasn't her first language, and she sometimes mixed up words or relationships when she was tired, but it bothered me more than it should have. That night, as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and replayed the conversation. Why had she looked away when she first explained the call? Why had her body language been so different during the conversation itself? I hated myself for analyzing her like this. I had never been a jealous person, never been suspicious. My ex-wife used to say I was too trusting, too naive about people's motivations. Maybe she was right. Maybe I needed to pay more attention. But I didn't want to be that man. I didn't want to be the insecure older foreigner who questioned every interaction his younger girlfriend had. I didn't want to poison something beautiful with paranoia. "Stop it," I whispered to myself in the dark. "She chose you. She's here with you. Don't ruin this." The next morning, Selena woke up early to make me breakfast before her shift. She was wearing one of my old t-shirts, her hair messy from sleep, humming softly as she moved around the kitchen. She looked so young, so innocent, so genuinely happy. "Good morning, handsome," she said when she noticed I was awake, bringing me coffee in my favorite mug. "Did you sleep well?" "Like a baby," I lied, accepting the kiss she pressed to my forehead. "What would I do without you?" "You'll never have to find out," she said, settling into my lap. "I'm not going anywhere." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. So I pushed the doubt down deep where it couldn't hurt us. But it was still there, like a splinter under the skin, too small to see but impossible to ignore. "I need to visit my grandmother this weekend," Selena said on a Thursday evening as we shared dinner at a local restaurant. "She's been sick, and my family thinks I should see her before." She trailed off, but the implication was clear. Her grandmother was dying. "Of course," I said immediately. "How long will you be gone?" "Just 2 days, maybe 3. She lives in Dumaguete, so it's a bit of a trip." I knew Dumaguete was about 4 hours away by bus and ferry. It made sense that she would need a few days. "Do you want me to come with you?" I asked. "To meet your grandmother?" Something flickered across her face, too quick to interpret. "No, baby, this is family time. Very traditional. And my grandmother, she's old-fashioned about foreigners. Maybe next time, when she's feeling better." I nodded, though part of me wondered why she had never mentioned her grandmother being traditional before. She had been excited for me to meet the rest of her family. But grief made people protective, and I didn't want to add stress to an already difficult situation. "I understand," I said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. "Give her my love." "I will," she said, squeezing back. "I'll miss you so much." Friday afternoon, I dropped her off at the bus terminal. She was carrying a small overnight bag and looked genuinely sad to be leaving. "Call me when you get there safe," I said, kissing her goodbye. "I will. I love you." "I love you too." But she didn't call Friday night. I sent a text around 10 p.m. "Hope you arrived safely. Thinking of you." No response. Saturday morning I tried calling. It went straight to voicemail. I told myself rural areas had poor cell service. Her grandmother might live somewhere remote. There could be a dozen innocent explanations. Saturday night came and went. No word. By Sunday afternoon, I was genuinely worried. What if something had happened to her? What if there had been an accident? I even considered calling the hospitals in Dumaguete, but I realized I didn't know her grandmother's full name or address. Sunday evening, my phone finally buzzed with a message. Sorry, baby, no signal here. Grandma passed this morning. Coming home tomorrow. Love you. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by guilt for being worried about our communication when she was dealing with a death in the family. I called her immediately, but again it went to voicemail. I'm so sorry about your grandmother, I said to the recording. I love you. Come home when you're ready. Monday evening, she knocked on my door looking exhausted and sad. I pulled her into my arms without saying a word. How are you holding up? I asked after a long moment. It's hard, she said, her voice muffled against my chest. But I'm glad to be home. I missed you so much. That night, she was more affectionate than usual, more attentive, more eager to please. She cooked my favorite meal, wore the dress I had bought her for her birthday, stayed up late just talking and holding each other. It should have felt like a blessing, this extra tenderness after a loss. Instead, it felt like an apology, like she was making up for something. But what did I know about grief? Maybe this was how some people processed loss, by clinging extra tight to the people they loved. Maybe I was reading too much into everything. Still, that night after she fell asleep, I found myself checking her phone's online status on Facebook Messenger. It showed she had been active Saturday afternoon and Sunday morning, active when she claimed to have no signal. I stared at the timestamps for a long time, my stomach churning. Then I closed the app and forced myself to sleep. There had to be an explanation. There always was. I wasn't looking for anything. I want to make that clear. I was scrolling through Facebook on a lazy Wednesday afternoon, just killing time while Selena was at work, when I saw a notification that her cousin Mara had posted new photos. Mara was the cousin she had mentioned before, the one from Manila. I had never met her, but Selena talked about her sometimes, so I was curious to see what she looked like. I clicked on Mara's profile and started scrolling through her recent photos. Beach pictures, food shots, selfies with friends. Normal stuff. Then I saw it. A photo from last weekend. The same weekend Selena was supposedly in Dumaguete with her dying grandmother. In the picture, Selena was standing on a beach, wearing the blue sundress I had bought her for her birthday. She was smiling, her arm around a man I had never seen before. He looked about her age, maybe younger, with the kind of athletic build that comes from youth and manual labor. They looked comfortable together, intimate, happy. The caption read, "Happy 4th anniversary to my world. Can't wait to have you home again, my love. Blessed, together forever, my love." My hands started shaking. I scrolled up to see when the photo was posted. Sunday morning. The same Sunday morning Selena had messaged me about her grandmother passing. The same Sunday morning when her phone supposedly had no signal. I clicked on the man's profile. His name was Miguel Santos. His relationship status said, "In a relationship with Selena Marie Reyes." There were dozens of photos of them together going back years. At beaches, at restaurants, at what looked like family gatherings. Recent photos. Photos from last month. Photos from 2 weeks ago. Photos taken while she was telling me she loved me. I scrolled deeper into his timeline, my chest growing tighter with each image. There were screenshots of text conversations between them, posted with captions like, "Look how sweet my baby is," and 4 years strong and counting. There were photos of gifts he had given her, jewelry I had never seen her wear, a necklace that looked expensive, a ring. In one photo from 3 months ago, they were at a beach resort that looked exactly like the place where she had told me she wanted to grow old with me. She was wearing the same expression, the same smile, looking at him the way she looked at me. I sat there for 2 hours, scrolling through 4 years of their relationship. 4 years of vacations and anniversaries and family events. 4 years of love declarations and future plans. 4 years that overlapped completely with the time I had known her. My phone rang. It was Selena, calling from work during her lunch break like she did every day. "Hi, baby," she said, her voice bright and cheerful. "How's your day?" I stared at the screen showing her with another man, their arms around each other, both of them glowing with happiness. "Fine," I managed to say. "Just relaxing. I can't wait to see you tonight," she said. "I'm cooking your favorite." "Looking forward to it," I said, though the words felt like ash in my mouth. After she hung up, I continued scrolling. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. She had been living a double life. Everything she had told me, everything we had shared, every moment of intimacy and connection, had been built on lies. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. The worst part was how genuine it had felt. When she looked into my eyes and told me she loved me, I would have sworn she meant it. When she made love to me, when she introduced me to her family, when she cried about asking for money, it all felt real. How was that possible? How could someone fake that level of intimacy and emotion? Or maybe she wasn't faking it. Maybe she somehow loved us both. Maybe in her mind we were living in separate worlds that didn't have to intersect. Maybe I was just the older, more financially stable option while he was her real love, her real life. I closed Facebook and set my phone aside. I sat in my empty apartment, looking around at all the traces of our life together. Her toothbrush by the sink, her clothes in my closet, the pictures of us on my desk. All of it suddenly felt like stage props in a play I didn't know I was performing in. She would be here in 4 hours, bringing dinner and kisses and stories about her day. She would curl up next to me on the couch, trace patterns on my chest, tell me how much she missed me during the few hours we were apart. And I would have to decide whether to pretend I didn't know or destroy the illusion that had become my entire world. I had 4 hours to decide how to handle it. 4 hours to figure out what to say when she walked through my door with that bright smile and warm embrace. 4 hours to choose between confrontation and pretending ignorance. I spent the first hour pacing my apartment like a caged animal. I spent the second hour drinking beer and staring at my phone, refreshing Miguel's Facebook page obsessively. I spent the third hour practicing what I would say. I spent the fourth hour in complete silence, just waiting. When I heard her key in the lock, my heart started pounding like I was about to jump out of an airplane. "I'm home," she called out, the same greeting she had used for months. She walked into the living room carrying a bag of takeout from our favorite restaurant, wearing scrubs from her pharmacy job, looking tired but happy to see me. Everything about her seemed exactly the same as it had that morning. If I hadn't seen those photos, I would never have suspected anything was wrong. "How was work?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "Busy but good," she said, setting down the food and coming over to kiss me. This old man came in asking about vitamins for his arthritis. It reminded me of when we first met. Her lips felt the same. Her perfume smelled the same. Even her story sounded genuine. "How was that possible?" "I missed you today," she said, settling onto the couch beside me. "Did you miss me?" "Always," I said automatically. We ate dinner in relative silence. She chattered about her coworkers and a difficult customer, the same kind of mundane work stories she shared every evening. I made appropriate responses while internally rehearsing what I was going to say. After we finished eating, she started to clear the dishes. That's when I decided to stop being a coward. "Selena," I said quietly, "we need to talk." She paused, plates in her hands, and looked at me. Something in my tone must have warned her because her expression shifted slightly. "About what?" "About Miguel." The plates slipped from her hands and crashed to the floor. For a split second, her face went completely blank, like a computer rebooting. Then she scrambled to pick up the broken pieces. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, not looking at me. "Miguel Santos, your boyfriend of 4 years. The man you were with last weekend when you were supposedly visiting your dying grandmother." She stopped moving. The silence stretched between us like a physical thing. "Dean, I can explain," she said finally, still crouched on the floor, surrounded by broken ceramic. "Please explain," I said, "because I'm very confused about why my girlfriend has another boyfriend." She stood up slowly, her hands empty, porcelain scattered around her feet. "It's not what you think." "What is it then?" "He's my ex," she said, the words coming out in a rush. "We dated for a long time, but it's over. We're just friends now. That weekend, I went to help him with some family problems. His mother was sick. I couldn't tell you because I knew you would be jealous." I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the recent photos. This was posted 3 days ago. The caption says, "Happy anniversary," and calls you his love. His relationship status says he's dating you. Right now, today. She looked at the screen and her face crumpled. "Dean, please. Let me explain properly. I'm listening." "Okay, yes, technically we're still together on Facebook, but it's complicated. He's been having problems, depression, and drinking, and I've been trying to help him transition to just being friends. If I change our status too quickly, he might hurt himself. I'm trying to be kind." And the anniversary caption? He wrote that, not me. I told him not to post things like that, but he doesn't listen. He's not well, Dean. I'm trying to help him heal so I can move on completely. It sounded plausible. Almost. "Show me your text messages with him," I said. Her face went pale. "Why?" "Because if you're telling the truth, your messages will show you trying to help a depressed ex-boyfriend transition to friendship. If you're lying, they'll show something else entirely." "I don't have to prove anything to you," she said, but her voice was shaking. "You're right," I said, standing up. "You don't. But I also don't have to pretend I believe you." She started crying then, real tears that might have moved me if I hadn't seen her cry so convincingly about her sick grandmother just days before. "Dean, please. I love you. I only love you. Yes, I made mistakes, but I'm trying to fix them. Please don't throw away everything we have because of some stupid Facebook posts." "It's not about Facebook posts," I said. "It's about lies. It's about spending a weekend with another man while telling me your grandmother died. It's about taking my money while living a completely different life with someone else." "I never meant to hurt you," she sobbed. "I just got confused. I was scared to hurt Miguel, scared to hurt you. I was trying to protect everyone. By lying to everyone. By trying to do the right thing. What would the right thing be now?" I asked, "If you love me and want to be with me, what would you do right now to prove it?" She wiped her eyes and looked at me with desperate hope. "Anything. I'll do anything. Block him on everything. Change your relationship status. Delete all the photos. Show me you're choosing me." She was quiet for a long moment. "Dean, I can't do that right now. He's fragile. If I cut him off completely, he might do something terrible. Give me time to handle this properly." "How much time?" "A few weeks. Maybe a month. I need to make sure he's stable before I do." "No," I said. "I won't be your backup plan while you manage your primary relationship. That's not what this is." "Then prove it. Choose. Right now, him or me." She stared at me with tears streaming down her face. "It's not that simple." "It is that simple. It's the simplest thing in the world." She opened her mouth like she was going to say something, then closed it again. In that silence, I had my answer. "I think you should go," I said quietly. "Dean, please." "I think you should go," I repeated. She gathered her things without another word. At the door, she turned back one last time. "I do love you," she said. "I know you don't believe me, but I do." "Maybe you do," I said. "But not enough." After she left, I sat in my apartment surrounded by broken dishes and shattered illusions. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt empty. Like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left only a hollow shell. I picked up the pieces of the plates she had dropped and threw them in the trash. Then, I sat back down and waited to feel something other than numb. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation we had ever had, looking for clues I had missed. They were everywhere once I knew to look for them. The mysterious phone calls. The weekends she was unreachable. The way she sometimes called me by the wrong name during intimate moments, then quickly corrected herself. The fact that she never wanted to take photos together in public places. The way she always paid for things in cash, never with a card that might leave a digital trail. How had I been so blind? By morning, I had decided what I needed to do. I opened my laptop and typed a message to her on Facebook. I wrote it carefully, editing and re-editing until it said exactly what I needed it to say. "Selena, I've been thinking about last night. I understand that relationships are complicated and people make mistakes. I understand that sometimes we get caught between our past and our future and don't know how to move forward cleanly. I even understand that you might have genuine feelings for both me and Miguel. What I don't understand is why you couldn't just tell me the truth from the beginning. I'm not a jealous man. I'm not possessive or controlling. If you had told me you were still working through feelings for an ex, I would have been patient. If you had told me you needed time to sort things out, I would have given you space. If you had told me you weren't ready for exclusivity, I would have respected that. But you didn't tell me any of those things. Instead, you let me fall in love with someone who doesn't exist. You let me plan a future that was never real. You let me send money to support a family that was supporting someone else. I'm not angry with you. I'm disappointed. Not just in you, but in myself for ignoring the signs that something wasn't right. I want you to know that I don't regret our time together. You taught me that I could love again after I thought that part of my life was over. You showed me parts of your country and culture that I never would have experienced otherwise. You made me feel needed and wanted at a time when I felt invisible. For all of that, I'm grateful. But I can't continue a relationship built on deception, no matter how good the deception felt. I can't compete with someone I didn't know existed. I can't trust someone who lies about where they are and who they're with. I can't love someone who sees me as a convenience rather than a choice. If what we had was ever real, if any part of it was genuine, please tell me now, not to change my mind, but so I can remember it that way. If it was all just an act, please don't respond at all. Either way, I wish you happiness. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, whether that's with Miguel or someone else entirely. Take care of yourself, Selena. You're young and beautiful and smart enough to build any life you want. Just build it honestly next time. I read the message 5 times before sending it. Then I closed the laptop and went for a long walk around the city. When I came back 2 hours later, she had read the message. The blue check mark showed she had seen it at 11:47 a.m. But there was no reply. I waited all day. Nothing. That evening I started deleting. First I removed all the photos of us from my phone. Then I deleted her contact information. I unfriended her on Facebook and blocked her number. I didn't do it out of anger. I did it out of self-preservation. I couldn't move forward while holding on to pieces of something that had never been real. The next day, I called the landlord of the house she had wanted us to rent together and canceled the deposit. I told him there had been a change of plans. He was understanding and returned most of my money without question. That weekend, Frank from Murphy's Bar invited me to join him and some other expats for a fishing trip. For the first time in months, I said yes. "Good to have you back," he said when I showed up at the boat. "We were starting to think you'd disappeared." "Just taking some time to figure things out," I said. "And did you figure things out?" I looked out at the water, feeling something like peace settle over me for the first time in days. "Yeah," I said. "I think I did." I'm recording this confession 6 months later. 6 months of learning to be alone again without feeling lonely. 6 months of rebuilding a life that doesn't revolve around someone else's lies. 6 months of trying to understand what happened and why I let it happen. The truth is, I still don't know if Selena ever loved me. I've replayed every moment, every conversation, every touch, looking for clues about what was real and what was performance. Some days I think she genuinely cared about me in her own complicated way. Other days I think I was just a convenient source of financial and emotional support while she lived her real life with someone else. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the why is less important than the what happened and what I learned from it. I learned that loneliness can make you ignore obvious red flags. I learned that wanting something to be true doesn't make it true. I learned that financial generosity isn't the same as love, no matter how grateful someone seems to be for it. I learned that you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, and you can't love someone into being honest with you. Most importantly, I learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was. A year ago, discovering something like this would have destroyed me. It would have sent me into a spiral of self-doubt and depression that might have lasted years. Instead, I survived it. I processed it. I moved on. I don't blame Selena entirely. She's young and probably scared and trying to navigate a complicated situation with limited options. Maybe she thought she could manage both relationships without anyone getting hurt. Maybe she convinced herself that what we had was separate from what she had with Miguel, that love could be compartmentalized like that. Maybe in her mind, I was the stable future and he was the passionate present, and somehow both could coexist without collision. Or maybe I'm still making excuses for her because accepting the alternative is too painful. Maybe she was just a very good actress who saw an opportunity and took it. Maybe every tear was calculated, every kiss was strategic, every I love you was a carefully deployed weapon in a war I didn't know I was fighting. The truth is, I'll never know for sure. She never responded to my final message. She never offered any explanation or apology or clarification. In a way, that silence told me everything I needed to know. If what we had was real, if any part of it mattered to her, she would have fought for it. She would have chosen me. She would have at least tried to explain. But she didn't. She let me walk away without a word, and that tells me I was right to go. What bothers me most isn't the betrayal itself. It's how easily I fell for it. I'm not a naive man. I've lived for 58 years, been married, been divorced, been hurt before. I should have seen the signs. I should have asked harder questions. I should have trusted my instincts when something felt off instead of pushing those feelings down because I wanted so badly to believe in what we had. But loneliness makes you vulnerable in ways you don't expect. When you've been invisible for months, when you've convinced yourself that your best years are behind you, when you've accepted that you'll probably die alone, and then someone young and beautiful looks at you like you're the most important person in their world, it's intoxicating. It's addictive. It makes you ignore things you would normally notice because the alternative is going back to being invisible, and that feels like death. I fell in love with the idea of being loved. I fell in love with feeling needed and wanted and important again. I fell in love with the fantasy of starting over, of building something new and beautiful with someone who saw potential in me that I had stopped seeing in myself. Selena didn't create that fantasy. I did. She just played along. I'm not bitter about the money. 50,000 pesos over 6 months isn't going to bankrupt me, and if it bought me 6 months of feeling alive again, maybe it was worth it. I'm not bitter about the time either. Those moments of happiness, even if they were built on lies, were still moments of happiness. I still felt them. They still changed me. What I am bitter about is the waste of it all. If she had been honest from the beginning, if she had told me she was involved with someone else but enjoyed my company and could use my financial help, we might have worked something out. I might have been okay with being her older friend who helped her family and enjoyed her companionship without expecting exclusivity. I might have been grateful just to have someone to share meals with and talk to in the evenings. Instead, she chose deception, and deception always ends in destruction. It destroys trust. It destroys possibility. It destroys any chance of salvaging something real from something fake. Now I'll never know what we might have built together if we had started with honesty instead of lies. I'm still in the Philippines. I'm not running back to Canada with my tail between my legs like some broken expat who couldn't handle the reality of international relationships. This country isn't to blame for what happened. Selena isn't representative of all Filipino women any more than my ex-wife is representative of all Canadian women. People are people everywhere. Some are honest, some are dishonest. Some are kind, some are selfish. Some are looking for love, some are looking for advantage. The key is learning to tell the difference before you get in too deep. I've made friends among the other expats now. Real friends, not just drinking buddies. We look out for each other, share experiences, offer advice when asked. Frank was right to be skeptical about Selena from the beginning, but he never said, "I told you so," when it all fell apart. He just bought me a beer and listened when I needed to talk. I've started volunteering at a local animal shelter. The dogs don't care how old I am or where I'm from or whether I'm lonely. They just want attention and care, and I have plenty of both to give. It's honest work with honest rewards. I've even started dating again, but differently this time. I'm upfront about my age, my financial situation, my expectations. I don't lead with grand gestures or expensive gifts. I don't rush into intimacy or exclusivity. I take my time, ask questions, pay attention to inconsistencies. I'm not looking for someone to complete me or save me or make me feel young again. I'm looking for someone to share my life with as it actually is, not as I wish it could be. Maybe I'll find that person, maybe I won't. Either way, I'll be okay. I'm recording this not to shame Selena or warn people away from international relationships, but to remind myself and maybe others that love built on lies isn't love at all. It's just elaborate wishful thinking. Real love requires honesty, even when honesty is uncomfortable. It requires choosing someone every day, not just when it's convenient. It requires seeing someone clearly and loving them anyway, not loving an idealized version of them that exists only in your imagination. I thought I found real love with Selena. What I actually found was a very convincing imitation of love, and I was so hungry for the real thing that I convinced myself the imitation was enough. It wasn't enough. It could never be enough. But recognizing that, learning from it, and moving forward anyway, that feels like growth. That feels like wisdom. That feels like the beginning of something real, even if I don't know what that something is yet. I'm Dean from Victoria, Canada. I'm 58 years old. I was married for 30 years, divorced for 2. I moved to the Philippines to start over and fell in love with a lie. But I survived it, learned from it, and I'm still here, still hoping, still open to possibility, still believing that somewhere out there is someone who will love me for exactly who I am, not who they need me to be. And if that someone never comes along, I'm learning to be okay with that too, because the alternative to risking heartbreak isn't safety. It's just a different kind of death. I'd rather be broken and alive than safe and numb. I'd rather feel everything, even the painful parts, than feel nothing at all. That's what Selena taught me, even if she didn't mean to. Even if it wasn't what she intended. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the most painful experiences. Sometimes you have to lose everything you thought you wanted to find out what you actually need. I needed to know I could love again. I needed to know I could survive heartbreak again. I needed to know I was stronger than my loneliness and smarter than my desperation. Now I know all of those things. And that knowledge, hard-won as it was, feels like a gift. A terrible, beautiful, necessary gift. So thank you, Selena, wherever you are. Thank you for the lies that taught me to value truth. Thank you for the betrayal that taught me to trust myself. Thank you for breaking my heart just enough to prove it still works. I hope you're happy. I hope you figure out what you want and find the courage to pursue it honestly. I hope you learn that love isn't about managing multiple people's emotions or keeping everyone satisfied. It's about choosing one person and choosing them completely, every single day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. And I hope someday someone chooses you the same way. You deserve that. We all deserve that. Even after everything, I still believe that's possible. Even after everything, I'm still here, still hoping, still ready to try again. Just more carefully this time. Just more honestly this time. Just more like the man I want to be instead of the man I thought someone else wanted me to be. That has to be enough. That has to be the beginning of something better. That has to be worth the price I paid to learn it.